Hello and welcome back, Squirrel Nation. I hope you're all having an outstanding day. Today, the topic for the video is the new support items and which ones you should be using. So with that said, let's dive in. Before we dive into the numbers here, I want to point out the different criteria to look at when choosing a support item. You want to look at how efficient the item is gold-wise. So are you getting a lot of stats for the amount of gold that you're spending? You want to look at the passives and if they match your play style. And that is the main things. So we will now cover those. Okay, so the developers had one major change to the support items, and I love it. I think it was a great change. What they did is they unified the stats across the board. So they have one wind item and one water item with the following stats, and then they have one wind item and one water item with the other following stats, right? So what this did is it let us as support players choose the item that fits our own playstyle the best without losing out on the stats. So it used to be all four items had different amount of stats, and we kind of all ended up buying Essence of the Wind because it had the best stats, so we got the most stats for the amount of gold that we were spending, okay? So that's basically how it happens. So I like the change. So now let's discuss what the change means. Okay, and by wind item and water item, what I mean is they start based on the wind stone or the water stone. So there's two starting passives. So wind stone gives you more gold and experience if you are the lowest gold level on your team. So you have to ask yourself, what type of support players is that good for? Well, that is great for roaming supports because roaming supports are not going to be getting experience and gold from the lane or the jungle because they're looking around, they're providing vision, they're going for ganks. The other thing wind items give you is it gives you extra gold for assists and kills. So once again, if you're roaming around, helping your team get kills, then you're going to get more gold out of that. Okay? So to summarize, wind items are outstanding for roaming supports. So if you enjoy roaming, stick with wind items. Okay, so water items. Water items provide you and an ally player with extra gold and experience if you are around when they are last hitting minions. So who does this help? Water items are great if you want to run a duo lane, or if you're the type of support that just likes to stick around their carries and help them clear waves and help them stay safe in lane, right? So if that's your play style, or if you're in the lower ranks where people really complain if you roam around, then you probably want to stick with water items because they will help you build a gold lead for your carries. Okay, so that's the strength of water items. So to summarize real quick, and I think this is really important, that's why I'm going over it again and again, is wind items if you want to be a roaming support, water items if you want to be more of a duo lane type of support. Okay, so then let's move on to stats. So that criteria is done. You can answer that question. Next criteria is what items are giving you the most value, right? And the way you answer this, and I don't want this whole video to end up talking about the numbers that we're seeing, so if you all are interested in how you calculate these numbers, let me know in the comments, and then I'll be happy to either explain it there, or if you guys want, I'm totally happy to make an entire video dedicated to how to calculate gold efficiency of each item, so that you all can play around with this and do it on your own. Okay, so basically, it's this, is the wind, the Essence of the Wind and Tidecaller's Mark, they give HP regen, mana regen, armor, no CD, max HP, and movement speed, right? And if you total up how much this would cost you to buy in tier 1 items, which is here, okay? And this number, just real quickly as an example, cloth armor gives you 90 armor and it costs 220 gold, okay? So if you get 250 armor, you would simply divide 250 by 90, okay, which would give you how many pieces of cloth armor you would have to buy to get 250 armor, and then multiply it by how much each piece of cloth armor costs, which is 220, okay? And then what I did is I did that for all these different stats, and then I summed it up, and that equals 1,782 gold. I'm just gonna round, okay? So 782 gold for the pure stats on Essence of the Wind and Tidecaller's Mark. The actual cost of the item is 1,850 gold. Okay, well that sounds really bad. but it does not count the passives, right? So you get a bunch of different passives, which obviously are adding value also. So this number doesn't look as bad as it seems. However, with that said, if you notice, Ring of the Fiend and Purifying Bracers give 2,178 gold worth of value just on the stats alone. Once again, not counting the passive. So that is a huge discrepancy in how much. It's almost 400 gold. So if you go with Ring of the Fiend or Purifying Bracers, you're getting almost 400 gold extra in stats. Okay, so then you have to ask yourself, right? So now we covered our two criteria, when to use wind versus when to use water, and then how much stats you're getting for the gold that you're spending. Okay, now that we covered the difference between a wind item and a water item, and which playstyle they fit, and the difference between the stat values that each support item provides you with, then the last thing that we need to cover is the passives. So I'm just going to go through all 4 of the different support items and discuss the passives and what type of playstyle they fit. Okay, so Essence of the Wind, we know that Ration and Distinction are the Wind Stone passives, so we will skip both of those because they're shared across all wind items. So Essence of the Wind essentially is for Wind Shield, so it grants a shield that absorbs the 800 plus the hero level damage, right? So this shield is good, and it used to have movement speed. I'm not sure. I'm actually going to have to check if it still has a movement speed. But anyways, it has a shield. So this shield is good as an engagement tool or as a life-saving tool in baiting the enemy in. So if you are getting into fights and you're trying to protect your carry from assassin or dive comps, I think this is a good item because basically assassins need to kill the carries in a lot of quick burst damage and then get out because they're very vulnerable once they've used their burst. So Essence of the Wind can interfere with that because you can give your your squishy carries the shield to survive the enemy assassin's burst. Okay, so that's that. So if you're playing against a Quillen as an example. Okay, Ring of the Fiend, once again, it has the Wind passive, so we skip to its unique passive, which is the Eye of the Fiend. So what this does is the enemy or the allies within 8 meters of you will get a 50% speed increase. So think about that. That can be used to engage or it could be used to disengage. 50% is quite a lot. So just from the movement speed, that already has a nice effect for your team. But the other thing that is really good is it gives you vision of the nearest enemy. So why is this important? Okay, well, think about the ways that teams normally get wiped. Okay, normally teams lose in solo queue environment because somebody face checks a bush that they should not face check, and the reason they face check the bush is they either want to go check dragon, they want to check Darkslayer, or they might be simply trying to steal jungle, or they might simply be behind in the game and they're trying to farm their own jungle and the enemies have set up an ambush. So all these cases, the Ring of the Fiend can get your team out of this if you are playing a smart support. Okay, so let's imagine that your team is all stacking mid, Darkslayer's up, you guys know a fight's going to happen, okay? As a support, you should understand that it's your responsibility to go clear the river near Darkslayer so that your team can safely get in position to take the Darkslayer. Okay, well while this happens, this is one of the most dangerous times in a game, because this is when good teams will set up ambushes and they will pick your team apart while they are rotating to the Darkslayer area. Okay, well this item, if you're, let's say, Teamy in this case, since I happen to be on his screen, if you're Teamy, you're running up to the bushes, you can simply, once you get towards the river, you can click this item, and it will give you vision of the nearest enemy. So guess what? If you don't see any of the enemies in the mid bush or the small river bush, then you know that you can take possession of those bushes for free. And then that gives your team a rally point. So now your team sees that you're in the mid bush safely, no enemies around, they can also stack in there. And then instead of being the team being ambushed, you can be the team that's getting ready to ambush. Okay, so that's the offensive example. Let's go to the defensive example. Another common scenario is you find yourself behind in the game. Your team, the only towers remaining are your high ground towers, and your team's just trying to stall the game out and farm as much as they can to catch up to the enemy team, right? This is a very common thing. So one of the main problems here is that teams often lose control of their jungle, right? Meaning their blue jungle comes up or their red jungle comes up and they can't go clear it because the enemy is setting up ambushes, and every time they go into their own jungle, they're actually getting killed. So that becomes another responsibility of good support, is to clear their jungle, make sure it's safe so that their team can farm up safely in their own jungle, and just get that extra gold. So once again, this item is great. So you can imagine I'm teamy, I'm running out of base, I'm going to check my blue buff, okay? Instead of face checking those two buffs, or the two bushes, the one near the small monster and the one near the blue buff, I can simply click my item and it will show me if those bushes have enemies in that. At the same time, it'll speed me up, so if there are enemies, I can disengage right away and not get killed, and if there's not enemies, I can run really quickly into that bush and then hold them so that my team knows they can safely clear the jungle. Okay, so that's the other use. I also want to highlight, while I'm on Ring of the Fiend, this in the ROV and the GCS leagues, pro leagues, and I would say those are the top 2 leagues in the world right now for Arena of Valor, is Ring of the Fiend is almost exclusively run. I don't think I saw any out of the 35 games that I watched, I don't think I ever saw a support not buy Ring of the Fiend. So I just will also point that out to everybody. And the reason for that is the effect, the passive, and the uses that I just covered are highly useful, and also it once again has very high gold values on the stats that it provides you. Okay, so moving on to Tidecaller's Mark. Once again, it's a water item, so all water items share the tidal force and devotion, right? So let's just go to its unique passive, which is Tidecaller. Okay, so Tidecaller, from what I've seen, works in about a 200-meter radius around a character, so just take that as an example, and it reduces the damage that your nearby, your 200-meter allies take, but also increases their damage. Okay, so when's this good? Okay, well, you have to be within 200 meters for your teammates to get this buff. So in that case, you're not going to want to play this on supports who are diving into the enemy team. So if I'm a Mina and I'm going to flash alt, or I'm trying to pull into alts, right? Then, or just mainly if I'm trying to be the initial fight initiator, this item's not that useful because I'm going to be in the middle of the team and my carries are not going to be on top of me in the middle of the enemy team, right? So, but if you think of heroes that are peeling, or say you're playing Mina and you're using her to peel, meaning you're sitting back with your carries, you're sitting back with your AD carry, you're sitting with your mage, then Tidecaller's Mark becomes a much more useful passive. Because let's say I'm teamy and I'm simply sitting on top of my marksman at all times, I'm having my stuns ready in case those assassins pop out, and I'm just always keeping my AD carry safe, then this is a great item because it's giving them that extra damage and it's reducing how much they take. Okay, so that's enough said for Tidecaller's Mark. And finally, Purifying Bracer is its unique passive, Purification, here at the bottom. So it removes all crowd control effects on nearby ally. On one nearby ally. This is going to be very good if you are running in a dive comp, okay? So the reason I say that is because a dive comp generally revolves around assassins who they're going to sneak around the back of enemies, they're going to dive on them, and kill them quickly and then get out, right? So what is an assassin's #1 enemy? Well, that is crowd control, right? So you can imagine an Alistair, an Aram, right? Those are very common heroes that have very strong CC that just give assassins nightmares, okay? So this item is really great if you have a Marauder on your team, you have a Quillen on your team, you have a Batman on your team, you have a Zuka, right? Because when they go in and they get CC'd, you can click this item quickly and then just let them disengage and get out. So anyways, those are the 4 support items and their passives, and that will do it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe, and leave any comments, questions, or concerns you have in the comments. As always, take care, and I'll see you all tomorrow.